In this movie, I'll show you how to use the simplest of the line tools, which Illustrator calls the line segment tool. And all it does is allow you to draw straight lines. But as we'll see in the next movie, there's a lot you can do with straight lines inside Illustrator. So the first thing I'm going to do is create a new layer to house my lines. This isn't absolutely necessary that you do that, but it's good to get in the habit of creating independent layers for your designs. And it's often useful to keep your guides, which we drew in the previous movie, isolated to their own layer. Now to create a new layer, you drop down to the little page icon at the bottom of the Layers panel, and you click on it. But notice that goes ahead and creates an unnamed layer, or at least it's auto-named Layer 2. Now, of course, you can rename that layer just by double-clicking on its name and entering a new one. However, let's say you want to name the layer as you create it. In that case, just go ahead and press Ctrl-Z or Command-Z on the Mac to undo that new layer. And then, instead of clicking on the little page icon, go ahead and press the Alt key or the Option key on the Mac and click. And that will force the display of the Layer Options dialog box, at which point you can call this new layer Lines and then click OK to create your new layer. All right, now I want you to go up to the View menu and just confirm that Smart Guides are turned on. So if you don't see a check mark in front of Smart Guides, go ahead and choose the command. And now let's go ahead and select the Line tool, which is located directly below the Type tool in the single column toolbox. And notice if you click and hold on this Line segment tool, you'll bring up a flyout menu of the 5 line tools that we'll be using throughout this chapter. If you want the line tools to persist on screen, then go ahead and release on this vertical bar on the right side of the flyout menu, and you will end up with this free-floating toolbox that contains the 5 line tools and nothing more. Now, using the line tool is pretty straightforward. You just drag from one location to another. But notice as you drag, because you have Smart Guides turned on, you're seeing a heads-up display. That first value is the distance value, and it represents the length of the line down to 1/100th of a point. Next, we have the degree value, which is the angle of the line from the point at which you start it to the point at which you end it. And so this provides you with some additional information if you need it as you're drawing your line. Then, to create the line, all you do is release, and by default, you should see that it has a stroke and no fill. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, up here in the control panel, on the far left side, we're seeing the fill color listed right here. And the fill, by the way, is the color on the inside of a shape. It should be set to none, which is just a red line through a white background, as we're seeing here. If it's not set to none, go ahead and click on it, and then select this very first guy, None, from the pop-up panel, and press the Enter key or the Return key on the Mac to accept that change. Next, we're seeing the color of the stroke, and the stroke is essentially the outline. So in our case, we have a black stroke along this line, which gives us a black line. Next, we have the line weight value, this guy right here. And just so we can see things very easily on screen, I want you to click on this down pointing arrowhead right here and change the line weight to 8 points, which determines the thickness of the line. All right, so obviously it's a very simple tool, but there are a few other things you can do with it. If as you're drawing, so you can just go ahead and start drawing with the tool like so, you go ahead and press and hold with the Alt key, then you'll create a line from the center outward like so. And you've got to keep that Alt or Option key down, because if you release the key midway in, then you'll return to drawing from one point to another point. So again, as you're drawing, press and hold the Alt or the Option key on the Mac, and then release your mouse button, followed by the Alt or Option key, to create a line from the center outward. To create a line at a 45-degree angle, you go ahead and drag with the tool, and then you press and hold the Shift key. So notice now that my angle value reads 45 degrees, or if I drag down, it'll change to 0 degrees, and then 315, and then 270, and so on. So in other words, you're going to end up with either a diagonal line, or you're going to end up with a vertical or horizontal line like so. And again, you need to keep that Shift key down. If you end up releasing it, then you're going to return to an unconstrained angle. So again, press and hold the Shift key, keep that key down, and then release the mouse button in order to create a line that snaps to the nearest 45-degree angle. And then finally, if you know the exact length and angle of the line you're looking for, just go ahead and click with the tool in order to bring up the Line Segment Tool Options dialog box, at which point you can enter a length value such as, let's say, 300 points, Or, by the way, you could enter some other unit of measure, such as 2.5 double quote for 2.5 inches, then press the Tab key, and Illustrator will go ahead and convert that value to points, and then change the angle to anything you want, such as, let's say, 45 degrees, and click OK in order to create that new line. All right, so that's how you use the line tool. Obviously, it's pretty basic stuff, and yet we're going to use this tool to create the outline of this entire factory starting in the next movie.